We will walk through a clear, practical overview of how to claim home office expenses on your Danish taxes, so you can understand what is allowed, what documentation you need, and how to approach the process in a way that is both compliant and efficient. Many people in Denmark now work partly or fully from home, whether as employees, self-employed professionals, or small business owners, and the tax rules around home office deductions are designed to reflect that reality while still maintaining clear boundaries. The first point to understand is that Danish tax law distinguishes between being an employee and running a business or freelance activity. As an employee, the threshold for deducting home office costs is relatively strict. To claim a deduction, the home workspace typically needs to be a dedicated room primarily used for work, not a corner of the living room or kitchen table. The tax authorities, SCAT, will look at whether the space is clearly separated from your private living areas and whether it is necessary for you to perform your job. If your employer already provides you with a suitable workspace at the office and working from home is more a convenience than a necessity, your chances of claiming a meaningful deduction as an employee are more limited. In contrast, if you are self-employed or run a business from home, the rules are more flexible, but still require a structured approach. In practice, the value of the deduction comes from identifying which portion of your housing costs is reasonably attributable to business use. For many taxpayers, this is done by calculating the ratio between the square meters used for business and the total square meters of the home. If, for example, your dedicated office is 10 square meters and your home is 100 square meters, then 10% of qualifying household expenses can potentially be treated as business-related. Qualifying expenses often include a proportion of rent if you are a tenant, or certain operating costs such as heating, electricity, water, and common charges. For homeowners, you cannot simply deduct your entire mortgage, but a proportion of ongoing operating costs linked to the property may be relevant when appropriately documented and allocated. Danish tax practice places a strong emphasis on reasonableness and documentation, so it is important not to overstate the share of home expenses that you allocate to work. You should maintain a simple record of how you calculated the business use share, including the size of the office, the total size of the home, and the specific expense categories you are allocating. It can also be helpful to keep digital copies of your rental contract or property information, utility bills, and any other recurring charges that form part of the calculation. For many people, internet and telephone expenses are particularly relevant. Here, the rules again depend on whether the cost is primarily private with some business use or clearly business-related. If you have a separate business phone or data subscription used exclusively for work, that cost can usually be treated fully as a business expense. If you use a single subscription for both private and professional purposes, you may need to estimate a reasonable business portion based on actual usage or a practical allocation that you can justify if SCAT asks. When it comes to office furniture and equipment, such as a desk, office chair, computer, or monitor, the key is whether the items are used primarily for work. For employees, in many cases these items are provided or reimbursed by the employer, and if so, they will follow the normal rules for employer-provided equipment rather than being claimed as personal deductions. For self-employed individuals, furniture and equipment can usually be treated as business assets. Depending on the value, you may either expense them in the year of purchase or depreciate them over several years, following the general rules for business assets in Denmark. It is worth noting that SCAT often views personal use versus business use of these assets. So if a computer, for instance, is also used by the family, a full deduction may not always be appropriate. The practical process of claiming home office expenses on your Danish taxes will typically go through your annual tax return via Taseself on skat.dk. If you are an employee with allowable work-related expenses, you will usually enter them under the relevant sections for employment-related deductions, using the current code specified by SCAT. If you are self-employed, your home office expenses are generally reflected in your business accounts and then flow into your personal tax return via your business profit and loss statement. In both cases, the tax system in Denmark is increasingly digital, so your income information is usually pre-registered, but you remain responsible for adding, correcting, or clarifying any deductions you are entitled to. A practical recommendation is to review SCAT's own guidance each year, as thresholds, limits, and interpretations can change, and to consider whether your situation has shifted. For example, if you started a business, changed employer, moved to a new home, or began working from home more permanently. It is also important to distinguish between a home office deduction and other, simpler allowances, such as the standard deduction for commuting or the employer's potential reimbursement of certain costs, tax-free, when specific conditions are met. A home office deduction is not automatic, and it generally comes with a higher expectation of documentation. Because of that, some taxpayers choose a conservative approach and only claim what they can clearly substantiate, rather than trying to maximize every possible cost. If your situation is more complex, for instance, if you use part of your home to meet clients, store inventory, or operate a more substantial business operation, it can be sensible to seek professional advice from a Danish accountant or tax advisor. They can help you interpret the rules in relation to your specific setup, structure your record keeping, and ensure that your deduction strategy is aligned with current practice. Nonetheless, for many people, the fundamentals remain straightforward. The space must be genuinely used for work, the costs must be real, the business or employment need must be clear, and your allocation must be both reasonable and well documented. To summarize, claiming home office expenses on Danish taxes is about aligning your actual work pattern at home with what the tax rules allow, without overstating your claims. Clarify whether you fall under employee or self-employed rules. Identify which costs are genuinely linked to your work. Calculate a fair business use share of your housing and utilities where relevant. Keep your documentation organized and enter the information carefully in your annual return. By approaching the process with structure and transparency, you can capture the tax benefits you are entitled to while staying fully in line with Danish tax regulations.